We're all living in a world gone geek. It's time to geek hard or go home. The website is fake, but the podcast is real. Here's your host, Grounded Geek.
Hello and welcome to episode 5. Episode 5 of the podcast is Real World Gone Geek's official flagship podcast. Flagship because there is more to come from World Gone Geek. Ominous? Maybe. But yeah, we've got some more shows up our sleeves, so keep an ear out. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram for all the fun to come. I'm your host, Jeff, aka Grounded Geek, and with me, by my side, but not like a conjoined twin, not like Quato from Total Recall. Total Recall celebrating its 30th anniversary this year, by the way. Happy anniversary, Douglas Quaid.
Oh.
Considered that a divorce. No, with me always is my good friend, Utah Shu. Welcome.
Greetings, fellow programs.
Hey, you know, in Total Recall, instead of going on vacation, they implant the memories so you think you've been. And right now, we're not able to go everywhere we might prefer, right? Like, where would your implanted recall vacation be right now? Keep in mind, it can be an adventure. You get a role in it, right? Quaid was a secret agent on Mars.
Oh, right.
What's your recall vacation?
Oh, my gosh. Let's see. It could be anything, right?
Yeah.
So let's see. Do I want to go to Mars and give those people air? Or no, you know what? I want to go to San Diego.
Oh, okay.
because I miss it.
Okay. For Comic-Con, you want Comic-Con?
I want a virtual Total Recall Comic-Con in my mind. And actually, you know what? No, forget San Diego. I want to go to Hawaii. I want a Comic-Con in Hawaii. HawaiiCon. I want to go to Hawaii.
Oh, that would be interesting. I bet you they have one of some sort down there.
They do. They've got two.
All right.
I'll go to both at the same time. I'll have stereo memories, a left side memory and a right side memory playing at the same time, experiencing two cons at once.
All right. Also with us on the podcast today from another podcast, actually promptly written, we've got Matt Sugerik. Welcome to the show, Matt.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Briefly tell us what promptly written is.
All right. Well, me and fellow author Ian Lewis, we each write a short story every month based on a crowdsourced writing prompt. So we ask the listeners to provide their wackiest writing prompts, and we have to take the task and write, roughly around 2,000 words, and then we read those stories to each other and critique them and talk about other writing topics, anything that's been on our mind over the past month. Utah here, he's our all-star contributor. Like, he's given us probably more writing prompts than we've come up with ourselves. So
there was a stint there.
Publicly thank him right now for.
You're welcome. I am the prompt master.
Is that an official
start giving
title?
Him credit, I think.
All right, and your Total Recall vacation would be where and as who?
This is going to be like a really boring answer, I think, but I'm going to go as me, and I'm taking my family to Universal Studios because I miss my Harry Potter experience. Like, I want a butterbeer, I want to walk through that brick wall, and I just want the rest of the world to disappear. And I want to be in Hogwarts and Hogsmeade,
it's funny.
That's what I want.
Is that funny? Because I feel like mine is the same way. Not necessarily the Harry Potter. Mine, I was trying to think of an answer this time. I actually did try to prepare this time, but I couldn't come up with anything exciting. And my answers were all boring too. And I wonder if it's just because of this pandemic and how we're all stuck at home that we're that kind of normalcy, right? Just going to Disney World. Like, I would love to see Galaxy's Edge. I haven't been to Disney World with my family. I would feel like I would be the same way, right? Just I would implant the memory that we've been there.
And then you would be the only one that remembers it.
Yeah, that's the thing. I guess you would have to get the whole family.
You get the whole family to have that.
Gaslighted as well to make sure that they know.
Wow,
we were there. You don't remember doing the Millennium Falcon ride?
Looking at it, my answer is kind of selfish if I'm the only one who can go because the rest of my family's stuck here and I'm just chilling with a butterbeer.
Yeah, but you remembered that they were with you, so it's like
right.
So I won't have the guilt, so that makes it better, right?
I guess.
I guess it's almost like Dorothy waking up going, and you were there, and you were there.
I think I would want to go somewhere boring. I think just to chill, no work, no, you know what I mean? It's just like, okay, it's just that, I guess that's the sign of the pandemic. We just want the normalcy is an adventure right now.
You should make a note of it, and like a year from now, ask that same question and see
how
different the answers are. Right. If we've gotten any normalcy back in our lives, or if we're still boring and just like, well, I just want to go to the supermarket.
You're assuming we're still doing a podcast in a year from now. We'll see what happens. No, that's the plan. We need to make sure we ask this question because it'll be the 31st anniversary of Total Recall at that time. Maybe, that we could use that as the currently. All right, let's get to it. It's time for
This Week in Geek. Number 1.
All right, lots of stuff going on in the world of Pokemon this last week. It seems like a lot of folks are missing all the big conferences, the E3s, the SDCCs, the ABCs, the 123s, the FDIC, LTLDR. I don't know. Companies are doing their own things now. Pokemon did a live stream, decided they wanted to announce some stuff. They left Nintendo aside and did their own live stream, dropped some significant news about some upcoming games, including an app that helps kids brush their teeth. Pokemon Smile, that's a real thing that they announced last week. Pokemon Cafe Mix, which is a free-to-play puzzler coming to your phone as well as to the Switch. Basically, it sounds like it's like every other block matching game in the world. In fact, I'm pretty sure there's already a couple of those Pokemon block matching games out there already, but it's coming to your phone and to the Switch, and they've got big plans for Pokemon Go. I didn't realize people were still playing this, but good on them. I'm glad it's decent fun, and right now is a great time to get out in the fresh air, socially distanced, of course, but it's good fun. So I guess people are still playing it, and mega evolved Pokemon are coming to Pokemon Go, which was some news they dropped. But the biggest news for me was the announcement of, after over 20 years, the return of Pokemon Snap. Do you guys remember this game, Pokemon Snap?
That's the one where you're like, you run around taking pictures, right? Is that the one? That's the one.
Yeah, you're on. It's like almost like what do you call those games where you're on
on rails?
Rails. Thank you. One of those ones where you're on rails and you're following a specific path, but you can turn around side to side, and you want to take the best picture of certain Pokemon. And somehow the professor. What's his name? Professor Oak, I think it was, something like that.
Yeah.
Somehow he would be able to judge the quality of your photos. There's some sort of algorithm. And man, he was a jerk about it. Sometimes I'm like, that was a good photo. But that game was addictive. It's literally, there's only, I think, like 7 levels or something, but you would do them over and over and over again because there were so many Pokemon to be found in that.
Right, it was on the DS, wasn't it?
No, it was on the Nintendo 64.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Wow.
Big old cartridge. Did you ever play this, Matt?
No, I never played this. Pokemon kind of skipped over me. Like when Pokemon came out, I wasn't really paying attention to video games right then. It was kind of like a gray line of like the age group. I always kind of missed their target, I think.
Yeah.
So I missed out on Snap, and I got to tell you, I'm a little disappointed hearing that you're on a track. When I watched the trailer, I was assuming you got to walk around and explore the world.
I think that's one of the things they changed.
Yeah, the new one is going to be different. So it's going to be a different kind of.
It's like an open world.
Yeah, which is kind of exciting. But even the one on the rails was way better than it sounds. Like, or it was just. And I'm like, I actually am older than the Pokemon generation. My kids were actually into it. So for me, it was the card game was really popular at the time. My kids were collecting the cards, and the game came out. And one of the reasons I think the game is so nostalgic for me is it's one of the few games, maybe the only game that my wife actually enjoyed playing and join in with us and play. So, that's a big deal. As you guys know, being married and being gamers, anytime you can get the wife to actually jump in and play a video game with you, it's like, whoa. And some people have married gamers, so that's great. But I did not. She's not a gamer. And that's great. We're some of the ways we are different are the reason that we're so compatible. But she's just not into games, but she loved playing Pokemon Snap. She's excited about this game coming out. So it's going to be a lot of fun. But yeah, the whole point was just to take pictures of Pokemon, and then at the end of the track you would get there and Professor Oak would make you feel small and insignificant because you're he was nice about it. He was nice, but it was like, what? No, come on. Like I really wonder how they decided what algorithms were involved with his judging of the pictures. But anyway, he would judge the pictures, you would pick your favorites, and then, you would do it again. And then you would turn in another direction and realize, oh my gosh, there's been this other Pokemon in this other weird spot that you have to turn at just the right moment to capture. And so you can't possibly capture them all on the first go through. You have to keep doing it. So there's a lot of replay.
That tagline is a lie, right? Pokemon, you got to catch them all. But you just said you couldn't.
Well, not on one run. You have to keep going. You have to
keep on going.
Keep
the
going
replayability
back.
Of it.
Yes. Yeah, that was the way that, because again, like I said, I think there was only like 7 or 8 actual tracks, or, like levels that you would actually go through to take pictures. But it was a good time. And obviously, with it coming back after 20 years, and I kept asking every time they would have, like when the Wii came out, when the Wii U came out, when they, finally launched the Switch, I'm like, will they ever bring back Pokemon Snap? Because that was so much fun. And the answer
they heard you
last week is, yeah, they heard me. Exactly.
So do you think this is
you?
Is
this a $60 title?
I have no idea.
The Pokemon titles, unless they're like Sword and Shield and all those, I feel like the Pokemon titles are usually $30 to $40.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. I will probably end up, but if it's open world, it might be a little more.
Oh, it's true. It could be a bigger game than the other ones.
Yeah. I have another question. Just because I did dabble a little bit with Let's Go Pikachu. Got quite addicted to it for a minute there for a second, but do you think will the photo decks that you're building in Snap be able to are you capturing Pokemon that could be transferred into a future title, you think, or maybe into Sword and Shield with some sort of?
That's a good question.
That's a very good question.
I mean,
that might make him a little more appealing, I think.
And they
for
do
me,
like to tie those things together now. So yeah, it could be very interesting. They also announced that something else big is in the works, but they didn't share it. Apparently, it's so big that it's getting its own live stream, which is this week, coming out on Wednesday, June 24th. So maybe we'll talk about that next week. What could it be? I don't know. Very exciting. Lots of doings in the Pokemon world going on.
Number 2.
In another attempt to quench the desires of convention goers with no conventions to goer to, DC has announced a 24-hour event on August 22nd called DC Fandome, where they've got some special content lined up, panels, reveals, some films, TV, games. There's an open letter from Jim Lee actually explaining it. The whole thing is a love letter to the fans, which is pretty cool. There's going to be a Hall of Heroes where some panels and reveals are going to take place, and then some additional verses. There's a Watch verse, Fun verse, Insider verse, U verse. Didn't AT&T already do that? U-verse?
I was going to say, why?
It's a YOU verse, which is all about the fans. Apparently, there's going to be cosplay contests and some prizes given away. There's a website, which I'll put in the show notes, where you can actually send your photos of your DC-related cosplay or fan art. And that stuff's going to is going to be featured on this website, which could be amazing. And I'm going to get my daughter to send in her cosplay of Scarecrow from the Arkham games, which was pretty epic. And so
that was fantastic.
Have her send that in. But yeah, how cool is that? They're doing their own little thing. They decided to kind of step aside from, we heard it last week, we talked about San Diego Comic-Con having their own virtual experience, but I guess DC said, nah, we're going to do our own thing. I mean, they may still be involved in SDCC as well, but this is going to have panels from basically every show in the CW lineup, like every Arrowverse show. They're even having panels from Lucifer, which I think is just on Netflix now, and Pennyworth, which is on Showtime or Stars?
Showtime, one of the cable channels.
But they're having panels from all those, and including cast and crew panels of the films like Aquaman, Wonder Woman 1984, The Suicide Squad, Black Adam. Right? Is supposed to have a panel.
Yes, Dwayne Johnson said he was going to be there.
And the Batman, which, I mean, maybe we're finally going to see maybe a teaser or something like that. I mean, this is big. This is huge. And obviously they're going to talk about the Snyder Cut. But what do you guys think of this? Like DC throwing their own con this year?
Well, I mean, I'm not the biggest DC guy in the world, but I'm really kind of digging the idea of all these virtual events that are going on right now. And I think some of them are going really well. I mean, you look at what like Josh Gad is doing with
the
Reunited Apart.
Those are great.
The only thing is he's got nostalgia backing him when he gets those panels. So, it doesn't seem to me like people have loved the most recent DC offerings. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. Do you think they're going to have as much engagement online?
I think, well, it's interesting because the past few years at San Diego, there were a couple of years where Marvel Studios didn't show up. They just didn't have a huge panel like people expected them to. And the first time they came back after a couple of years was last year. And DC also did the same thing where they skipped a year. And so I'm not surprised that DC would try and do something on their own. I am kind of surprised. I mean, I guess it makes sense. Since everything's going virtual, it's a lot easier to do these kind of virtual cons than to try and set up your own big event, physical event. Like Marvel has the advantage of being owned by Disney, so they can do a big event at D23, which is another convention that Disney runs. And so Marvel, if they're not at one big convention, they always have a couple of others that they can show up at. I'm curious to see how I like the way the fandom is set up, how you've got this big hall, the Hall of Heroes where all the tentpole panels are going to happen. And I'm curious to see how they split up and organize the other sort of lands of this virtual theme park, DC theme park. But it sounds pretty amazing. I'm glad they're doing it. I find it interesting that it's just 24 hours. It's just that one day in August, right? It's not like over a weekend or something.
Right.
I'm wondering how they're scheduling everything, because I'm sure, well, I guess that's typical of any con. You have what I call the conundrum, where you have so many things you want to do, and of course they all happen to be scheduled right at the same time, so you have to pick one.
That's exactly what I was thinking. That the Hall of Heroes, it sounds like, is Hall H or whatever.
Basically Hall H, right, with the big, the big movie panels and whatever
that's
else.
the one that you really want to get into, because that's where all the big stuff is. But then I was reading that there's going to be panels and reveals taking place at these other little worlds as well, and then it's like, wait a minute, so is this going to be like the same kind of situation where if I decide to sit in here and listen to this Aquaman panel, am I gonna miss, Matt Reeves over here talking about, Batman, because
talking about sparkling Batman? I'm kidding.
Yeah, that's something that, we don't want to see.
It'll be interesting to see, because, since it's virtual, I mean, what's stopping people from having a window open for the Wonder Woman 84 panel and then another window open for whatever other panel is going on at the same time? Like, are they going to just limit one stream per device, or do they care?
Probably.
Yeah. So who knows?
Yeah.
I like the idea. I think that's, going to be the wave of the future. So.
Number 3.
All right, as I seem to cram into every episode so far, why not this one as well? Bill and Ted Face the Music is coming out, in case you missed it, long-awaited sequel. But Keanu Reeves is once again one of Hollywood's hottest commodities. He seemingly has been on kind of a little hiatus for a while, not doing a ton of things. And all of a John Wick. And now Keanu's everywhere, and he's breathtaking.
Breathtaking.
No, but he's suddenly in all these movies, video games. He's getting new sequels to old classics like The Matrix and of course, Bill and Ted Face the Music. As our good friend Chris G from Blurred's Eye View shared when he was on our first episode, we're in the Keanu-zance, the renaissance, if you will, of Keanu. And I'm okay with that. He seems like a genuinely great guy also, though, outside of just making films. And this past week, you could have had an opportunity to have a 15-minute Zoom call with Keanu for a price. Reeves teamed up with Camp Rainbow Gold, a children's cancer charity, which I'm not familiar personally with that charity, but obviously it's a cause you guys know is close to my heart. And for the right donation bid, you get 15 minutes on Zoom with Ted Theodore Logan himself. The auction item was valued at $10,000, and on Wednesday of last week, it was up to $17,000. And today, as of this recording, I just checked, $75,000 is the current bid. So for some time, it was jumping up by hundreds. So it was like 18.6, 18.7, 18.8. Then from 19.1 to 31.9, it just like really jumped. And then from 32,000 right to 75. Like somebody just said,
wow.
There was no 33, it was just like, no, someone said 75, here it is. And so
it's like they did max bid.
Yep. It's been sitting at that for a little while. These are all anonymous bids, but what a great cause. And holy cow, $75,000 for children's cancer, which is amazing.
That's
and
outstanding.
How cool of it for Keanu Reeves to do that. And I thought about what if, I mean, I don't think we have enough listeners yet, but it would be fun to like gather, what if we got enough listeners to
a GoFundMe with all of our listeners.
We could have put the money together so that we could talk to Keanu on the podcast. We could have done
So what would you have talked about? Because I just feel like I'd want him like running lines.
Yeah, I know. It's a
tough one, right?
I feel like it would be totally the
totally
worst
fanboying,
thing
right?
ever. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm glad. Hopefully, it's going to somebody who's going to use it wisely, or we'll spend some time actually.
I hope it's Sandra Bullock. And it's just
that
like
that would be hilarious.
And then they better record that. That would be so cool.
That would be hilarious. Hey, Keanu, remember that time when we did that film on that bus? That was cool.
And then didn't she reveal that she had a little crush on him back when they made that movie? And then he revealed that he had a crush on her too. And it was like, no, because that never happened. What happened?
Both crushes are pretty warranted, I think.
Yeah, pretty fun.
I can't argue with either of them. Yeah.
But good on Keanu for doing that. I think that's amazing, and I'd love to see that kind of charity work. That's something we believe very strongly in here at World Gone Geek. Awesome. And whoever that person who donated $75,000, I envy you, one, for having $75,000 to just drop on a Zoom call with Keanu.
I bet it's a group of people.
I would imagine so.
Did they say anything about groups? Was that allowed?
I have no idea, but I would imagine it would have to be, right? I mean,
I guess,
to come up with that kind of money, I'm going to assume.
Number 4.
July is going to be a geek fest for Netflix subscribers. They're going all in with geek-flavored content in the sci-fi and fantasy realms, which I'm certainly not complaining. Some of it actually looks really good. Already out, just dropped on Friday of last week. The Floor is Lava, which is a Wipeout-style competition game set in elaborately wacky living room settings. The floor is replaced with bubbling orange-colored lava. I'm sure it's water, but it's supposed to look like lava. Teams of contestants must traverse, just like we all did as kids, or maybe you just did last week. Who knows? There's a pandemic on. So, but this
I'm
is
hovering
a fun
over
idea.
my floor right now.
This is a fun idea for a show. I think it's a great idea. Also coming out is an adaptation of Frank Miller's Cursed, a cool twist on Arthurian legends, which I love. Additionally, Warrior Nun, a disparate group of young warrior women battle evil demons in the apocalypse, it looks like. Trailer for this was pretty epic. Ending with F's given. This is a family show, so
That's
F's
right.
given none. N-U-N.
Loved it.
N-U-N.
That was
Loved it.
amazing.
That was great.
But this looks like it could be action packed. And for horror fans of The Grudge, they're getting a TV series, Ju-On Origins, which is straight out of Japan. The film series has 13 films, 9 from Japan and 4 American butcherings, I assume. I only saw one of them. I didn't see the others, but the trailer for this looks terrifying, of course. And this one's straight out of Japan in Japanese. So if you're into horror,
love that.
This could be pretty intense. So what are you guys excited for from Netflix in July?
Gosh, I like everything that you've just mentioned. Cursed, like you said, such a great twist on King Arthur's legend. I love the twist that they're doing it. I won't say too much because I don't want to spoil it for everybody, but I like the idea. And then Warrior Nun reminds me of Buffy in some strange way. Definitely looks like a lot of fun. Being a fan of the original Japanese, the first few Japanese movies of Ju-On, and then also being a fan of the first American remake, The Grudge, with Sarah Michelle Gellar. I'm excited for the Netflix TV series because it kind of is a prequel, but then kind of ties all of the movies into one universe, which didn't necessarily happen with the films. And the fact that it's coming from Japan, that the originator is involved with it, really makes me excited because there's always something lost in translation, especially with horror movies when they try and Americanize it. So yeah, I'm excited for all of it, but Ju-On especially.
So with Ju-On, I haven't been a huge fan of modern horror for a long time because I think they started just relying on little like gimmicks to try to, just scare people. You get the jump scares, you get found footage to kind of creep people out. But I think that this looks a little interesting, although I'm kind of reserving judgment until I see how the horror is portrayed, because I like the good old days of Jaws when the horror is created by what you can't see, by what's lurking out there. And if what's lurking is constantly jumping at you every 30 seconds to make you jump out of your seat just to let you settle down before jumping at you again, I'm kind of out. Like I want the horror to kind of like settle in. I'm definitely going to watch this one though, for sure. Warrior Nun, I actually was kind of taken aback after reading like their the description of the show and then watching the trailer. It was a little campier than I thought it was going to be. But and then, is the comic like that? And if the comic's like that, good on them, because they should definitely be trying to match that up with the comic, because comics are such a visual medium. Like you start messing with that and people are going to jump out real quick. So I actually wanted that to be darker than what it looks like. But that being said, like you said, F's given none. That was brilliant. And it pulled me right back in. So I think once I got the tone that they were going for, I think I'm still in. It'll be curious to see if that gets old or not. So a bunch of these are maybes for me. One thing about The Floor is Lava, like game show prizes are getting super cheap, man. This team of 3 gets 10,000. That's assuming that all 3 of them make it.
They spent a lot of money in the lava, I think.
Speaking of the lava, that water better be like uncomfortably warm. Like I want that to be bath water.
Like beyond like just above bath water. Like
yes,
hot
when they
tub.
fall in, I want it to be gross. Like
I was thinking the exact opposite. Like it should be a shocker. Like it should be ice cold.
But then it's not lava.
Yeah,
I was hot.
The floor
It's so hot.
The floor is ice water.
I don't know.
So, and then if anybody out there is listening that can make this happen, these wipeout type shows are great, but I think it's pulling us away from what everybody wants, and that's American Gladiators. So somebody just bring the American Gladiators back.
Well,
they tried that a couple years ago.
Have you seen the Tag show yet? Ultimate Tag?
Yeah,
it's similar. It's clearly inspired by American Gladiators because they've given personalities and almost like backstories to the taggers that are part of the show, not the contestants, and then they pit them against the people. So it's clearly, I guess what I'm trying to say is it's a step towards that. And I feel like American Gladiators is next. It's like we're finally this is happening.
I hope so.
I thought they tried to remake it. Didn't they do that a few years ago? Maybe 10 years ago. Maybe it was a while longer.
If they did, I missed it.
There's also rumors
it flopped. I don't know.
There's also rumors that Legends of the Hidden Temple is coming back for adults. An adult Legends of the Hidden. So all the people who watched it as kids or grew up on that in the 90s,
they should bring back the kid contestants
be on the show. I just don't. I wish that the Legends of the Jedi Temple, basically the Jedi
I was
Temple
about to say they need to do the adult version of that.
Yeah, that's the one I want an adult version of. I don't want this, but anyway, yeah, that's kind of interesting. But yeah, I think American Gladiators must be next because the Ultimate Tag clearly is leaning in that, starting to move in that direction again. Given again, as soon as they started showing they all have these clever names, just like Blaze and
they should have to walk in through like sort of like their own Hall of Heroes where they can walk past statues of Laser and
that'd be nice. They definitely have to have a nod to the original American Gladiator. Yeah, I mean, there's no way they can't.
Number 5.
All right, so this story isn't that big, but it is hilarious, and it segues into our big topic for this week, which is the world for the post-pandemic geek. But one of the first shows to resume full production last week was soap opera The Bold and the Beautiful. They are back to work with a plethora of social distancing protocols, basically shooting the cast separately, doing a lot of clever editing, but it's a soap opera, which means it can't exist without some sort of sexy romantic shenanigans, right? They have decided that many of those scenes will be shot solo. And no, that's not what you think it means, Matt. They've got lifelike dolls, which, get this, they didn't just make for the pandemic. Apparently, they've been around for the past 15 years, according to this interview report.
This is what blew my mind right there.
Yeah, think about what lifelike must have meant 15 years ago.
Exactly. But I guess they've used them in some of the other stories for dead characters or something. I couldn't quite follow why they had the dolls in that story, but these dolls are going to get makeup and wigs and literally will be in the love scenes with the actors. I don't know if there's any comments on it. I just had to share this story. I literally just wanted to talk about that.
There's a lot of jokes, obviously, but I mean, they are thinking outside the box here.
That is very bold and beautiful.
I have a feeling it's bold, but not
I'm
so
not
beautiful.
sure how beautiful it is.
I almost dove into episodes of The Bold and the Beautiful to do some research on this just to see if. But I actually didn't even try. I should have tried to search on bold, beautiful blow up dolls, but then I was afraid to see what the search results for that would have been. But yeah, well, that's crazy. What really blew my mind was this isn't like something new for them. They've been doing this for over a decade.
Well, they've not been doing love scenes with them. They've just
but they've had these
for like a dead guy,
right? But I guess so. They're also doing. They also are inviting spouses on the set if they test negative for COVID and pass all the the tests.
I'm sure that's exactly what their spouse wants to do.
Well, no, their spouse can be the body double or whatever. So if they're kissing or whatever, they'll put a wig on and they'll just show from behind. You know what I mean? The man, and then his actual spouse will be the one he's kissing and things like that. So, which I guess that makes more sense than
that
the
makes
dolls.
A lot more sense than anything else. Yeah.
But
they did that for Thor.
Tell me you aren't now planning to watch Bold and the Beautiful.
I'll watch.
You kind of want to see, right?
We're all at home anyway. I think it's gonna come. We'll turn it on.
It becomes a game. It becomes a game. Like, can you pick out the blow up doll?
Is that the doll or is that a spouse?
Take a picture, post it to Twitter.
Oh that's it. Doll or spouse.
Oh. It is crazy stuff. Oh, man.
I was going to say the good thing about it is I think that like notoriously people view the acting on these things as pretty, rigid and
Sure.
anyway. So, if a doll shows up and doesn't say anything in the frame, like people might not even bat an eye to it. They might just be like, oh, that guy.
Oh, geez. You're right. What a statement of the acting quality if they can't tell the difference between a real actor and a blow up doll.
I can't wait.
Crazy stuff. It is a whole new world, new ways of making films, new ways of seeing films, new ways of celebrating films via conventions. The times are uncertain, as everyone keeps reminding us in commercials where they pretend to care about it all and then ensure that we keep buying their stuff. But what does the world for the post-pandemic geek look like? That's what we're going to discuss in our big topic right after this. Hey, everybody. We hope you're enjoying The Podcast is Real, which is the official podcast here at World Gone Geek. We hope you enjoy the website, worldgonegeek.com, which is a parody and satire site of pop culture news. We really enjoy doing it, so we hope that you enjoy reading it and listening to the podcast. But many of you have asked, how can you help? What can you do to support the podcast? Well, most importantly, spread the word. Let people know what's going on. Follow us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram, share the tweets, share the posts, share the grams, whatever. All of those things go a long way in letting people know that we're here. People jump on these things and listen to podcasts mostly via word of mouth. So tell people what we're doing. We'd love that. Another way you can support us is by, in your favorite podcast app, find a way to give us a review. Give us 5 stars, tell people that you like what we're talking about, whatever. But if you were to vote, especially on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify, if you were just to click those favorite buttons or those stars, that would be huge. It helps us rise up the list. It helps us be noticed by more people, and therefore more people will start to listen. And finally, if you'd like to get involved in a really concrete way, we do have a Patreon account, patreon.com/worldgonegeek. We have several tiers there where you can actually support the podcast financially, even as low as $2 a month. Did you know that if we ended up with 10 patrons at just $2 a month, that would help pay for one of the hosting costs for one of the things that we're doing here? So we would love it if you'd be able to do that. We totally understand if you can't. There's plenty of other ways to help, as I said before. But I do want to let you guys know about the Patreon account, because right now this would be a sponsor break and we don't have any sponsors yet because we just got started. We're just getting rolling. Once we have a lot more listeners and a lot more of a following, we could maybe look into that. But in the meantime, we'd love to have your support in all the ways that I just described. If there's any of those things that you feel in your heart that you would like to do to be a part of the show, we'd appreciate it. Most importantly, though, I am so glad that you are listening. Thank you. Thank you for downloading this podcast and listening, because that means the world to me. We're not just talking out into the air, that there are people on the other end actually appreciating what we do. Thanks so much for being there. Let's get back to the show. All right, we are back in studio here with Matt Sugerik from the podcast Promptly Written. Also with me, my good friend Utah, and co-host here at the Podcast is Real. We're grateful that you're listening. As we just talked about in the last segment, Bold and the Beautiful is taking some bold steps to make sure that they can resume production in this post-pandemic world. But we wonder, what does a post-pandemic world Gone Geek look like? And how will we make movies? How will we see movies? How will we handle conventions? Everything's virtual right now. Will that change? Is that going to change the landscape? Is it going to be a whole different ballgame? That's what we're going to talk about today. And as theaters are beginning to open back up, AMC announced their plans, which involved not requiring masks because somehow masks were a political statement. But then realizing the science shows they really do help, and realizing everyone was making fun of them. So they quickly reversed that bizarre announcement. And so you will be required to wear a mask to go in, unless you're eating popcorn, in which case you're allowed to take it off. But at that point, you're sitting in your seat and you're not facing people and you're not whatever, you know what I mean? So it's understandable. But
you ever seen the way some people eat popcorn in the movie theater?
Yeah,
though?
it could be everywhere.
I mean, that's flying everywhere. Like,
right. The biggest thing for me is I'm curious to see, because I find their theater's enforcement of other things that aren't supposed to happen in the theater pretty lax. So yeah. I can't imagine them taking the extra step, or being able to pay for or afford the extra step and extra staff to actually enforce, hey, you should be wearing a mask because you're not eating popcorn, or you know what I mean? Like in the theater, once people are in the theater, I feel like it's going to be Yeah, all bets are off because they just don't have the staff to do it.
They've been trying to get people to turn their cell phones off in the theater for 20 years, and
and
nothing,
nothing has come of it. So I do find it funny and interesting that AMC's choice of words with their optional mask requirement was really what killed them, because Regal and Cinemark both originally had optional mask announcements in terms of their COVID-19 guidelines, and they didn't get any flack. So because AMC brought the word political into it is when all of a sudden things went downhill for them. So now that AMC's kind of backpedaled and reversed it, I'm curious to see if Regal or Cinemark start saying, maybe we should say something about that too. I mean, personally for me, I'm still going to hold off on the theater yet. I mean, Nolan's Tenet is really pulling me towards the theater end of July, but I'm still kind of, hesitant about any enclosed area with a bunch of people.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I mean, although I gotta say, like, even lately, I mean, don't get me wrong, I enjoy going to the movie theater, but it's really like the big blockbusters with the special effects, the surround sound that I can't get at home. Yep. Those are the ones that draw me to the theater. But if I'm just going to see the latest comedy or even a horror movie, like, I'm totally
like
fine.
Trolls?
Like, just no, you made me snort, and I don't appreciate that. But if it's just some comedy or something, I'm totally fine spending $20 and just streaming it to my house.
Yeah. I'm not crazy about $20 yet. That's still for me, it depends on the movie, but
$20 for, like, I have a family of 4, $15 movie ticket. We're going $60 before refreshments. Before you get in the theater, after refreshments, you're spending another $40. It's $100 to go to the movies. So if I could spend $20 to stream it to my house and save $80, that works for me. Now, to get back to the refreshments thing, this is part of my rant. And I hear people like get on this all the time. Like, why do I need to spend $6 on a bottle of water at the movie theater? So I'm going to preface my whole rant with, I am not an expert. If you are an expert, come tell me, educate me at Matt Sugerik on Twitter. I would love to hear. I took one class when I was going to school that was kind of a all-in-one like movie business kind of thing, right? So essentially, most of the ticket, if not all of the ticket price, is going directly to the movie studio. And that varies by movie. You know what I mean? So like when Star Wars is released, that first month it's in the theater might not be getting a single penny.
Right. It all goes to
off of the ticket price. And so everybody's like, well, it cost me $15. Why do I got to buy this? It's like, if you want the movie theater to exist, they need to be able to make money. Now, there's a whole bunch of arguments that could be made about, like, is the profit margin like necessary? Like, do they really need to charge $6 on a bottle of water that they probably spent 75 cents on? Probably not, but maybe they do when you talk about the people who need to clean the theaters and like staff the ticket and like everything, the electricity bill. I don't know how much it costs to run a movie theater, but back in the day, I had a friend that was like all stoked when the Cadillac Escalade was released, like the first one. And it was this giant thing. And he was like, oh, it's this much money. I make this much money. I can afford this car because the payment would only be $600 a month and I could do that. And I'm like, yeah, but it gets 8 to 10 miles to the gallon. Can you afford to put $100 worth of gas in it every 3 days? And he's like, no. And I'm like, then you can't afford the car. And I feel like the same thing goes to the movie going experience. Like, if you can afford the tickets, but can't afford the refreshments, you really can't afford to go to the movie. If you really want that movie theater to exist, you need to help them make money. So I don't like paying $6 for a bottle of water, but at the same time, I do it without question every time I go to the movie, because I know in the back of my mind that if I want to be able to continue to go to the movie theater, that's what I need to do. Yeah. Rant over.
No, agreed. And so, as somebody who actually, I used to work in a movie theater back in the day.
Jeff used to work at a movie theater, AMC.
No, nice. It was.
Was it?
It was the. Over in
Which
Morse
one was
Road
in Columbus?
Columbus.
No, that wasn't an AMC. That was
what was it? Oh my gosh, I don't even remember.
It was before the big three.
Yeah, it was back when General Cinemas.
It was a General Cinemas.
Oh, nice! I remember General Cinemas.
Yeah, I saw kind of firsthand and spoke with the managers there and saw how the whole process went. So yeah, I've always been I knew that they had to pay me to clean the theaters and do all that kind of stuff, and the only way they could do that is through concessions. Totally get that. But at the same, and you're right. At the same time, it's like if that's too expensive, then stay home. That's one of the reasons that Universal or an AMC and Universal are kind of at odds right now. Is that Universal saying, well, why don't we put these movies in both on demand and in the theaters? And AMC is saying, wait a minute, I already don't make any money when your movie comes out. Right. Now you're going to tell people to stay home so I definitely don't make any money, so that my audience is even smaller. Because right now there's an agreement with the theaters and these movie studios that there is a period of time where it's exclusive to movie theaters before. That's why people are always like, well, I want to rent it now. I wanted to, well, that the reason is because that's how these movie theaters stay in business,
That's
right?
how they make their money.
They are able to, you can only see it in theaters for a certain amount of time, and then comes out on DVD and all these other things. And that is so that these theaters can actually make money. And now that on demand may be a thing that's actually going to happen, like then we're not showing your movies. And so that is a new thing we're going to be experiencing as we move forward, is as more and more of these movie studios decide to release movies directly to video on demand, then it's going to have an adverse effect on movie theaters.
Yeah, it is. And it's sad. It really is sad, because I do enjoy going to the theater when I go. But then at the same time, like, I can't think of a experience at the movie theater where recently where somebody hasn't been completely rude next to me or talking in front of me. And it's just I love the theater, but like literally society has no respect for other people. They just do what they want. And in order for me to watch the movie the way that I want to, like when those lights go down, like I've been conditioned to shut up,
right? Because
it's time to watch the movie, and people aren't being conditioned to that anymore. And when I watch a movie at home, I can have at least a little bit of control for whether people are shutting up or not.
Sure. No, it's true. There's a very much a kind of individualistic sort of thought process and philosophy going on. And I remember there was one time I went to a movie theater, and I kind of kindly suggested to someone behind us, hey, could you stop talking, because, we're in a movie theater. And their reply was, hey, I paid for my ticket too, so I can do what I want. And I'm like, but there are rules. There are certain general rules of common courtesy in a movie theater that all of us are supposed to follow. And one of them is don't talk during the movie.
Right.
And somehow that's thrown out the window because, quote, I paid for the ticket. I paid for my ticket. I can do whatever I want. And so, yeah, you're right. That's certainly something that doesn't happen when you're watching at home. I feel like, though, like with Universal, they had lightning in a bottle. It was a perfect storm of circumstances with their release of, what was it, Trolls World Tour, whatever that sequel was, right? So I feel like it was much more successful because of the timing of it. I don't know if they had released something now, if they would be as successful. So it'll be very curious to see. I feel like I'm rooting for the movie theaters because I do enjoy the big movie theater experience. Like, when you have a movie that's just going to take full advantage of the big screen and the sound, and absolutely, I would spend the money and take the time to go to a movie theater. But it's going to be a while for me.
I think the timing was unfortunate, because I think if they would have been able to kind of look forward and project this, then the theaters could have gotten in on the streaming somehow and still been the middleman to deliver it. Like if they would have started planning for this, they could have had like their own, AMC streaming service where it's not a monthly cost, but you go through them to stream it to your house, and they could still be that middleman. But because everything just stopped all at once, like Universal was like, well, let's see if we can just put this out there. And when they did, now there's no reason for a middleman. Why would they give money to AMC to stream their movie when they can stream it themselves?
So in addition to going to the movies, and we talked in our very first episode about a lot about this, and we talked about how maybe the future is drive-ins are coming back again. In fact, Pinecrest, one of the theaters here in Cleveland, actually is doing a drive-in in the parking lot of the
that's right.
They're movie
like
theater. But
Very
they
cool.
Can't get people to come in, so they're doing some sort of drive-in movie in the parking lot, which is kind of a unique idea, and will bring some revenue into that since they're closed. I assume that they'll be able to still sell concessions. Maybe they'll even have food trucks. I haven't seen the full story, but I did hear they were doing that.
Well, it's interesting with Pinecrest. You're talking about the Silver Spot Theater.
Yeah.
They're one of those kind of gourmet theaters where you can order food and dinner, like actually order dinner and have it brought to you right before the movie starts, and they have like trays on the recliners.
Oh, fancy.
Yeah, so it's very fancy. So I'm curious as to how much of that they're going to replicate or even bother trying. I like the idea. That's clever of them to say, hey, we're going to project the movie outside and you can sit in your car. But I'm curious as to, like you said, for their concessions or food service, what they're doing.
Before we move on to the next topic, I got this email from AMC's CEO and president. He sent it just to me, by the way.
Wow.
And
wow.
No, it just and it says, he talks about like some of these things that they're doing, seat capacity restrictions, social distancing, HEPA filters, cleaning, air ventilation. Like they're doing all these huge things to make
simplified menu. I saw
make them safer. And then he says, finally, I'm pleased to report that AMC Theaters, this is a quote, is in an excellent financial position to welcome you back to our movie theaters. In recent weeks, you may have heard or seen or read speculation about AMC's future. They listen to our podcast. They heard us talking about so in my headcanon, that's what happened. Adam Aaron, the CEO and president of AMC Theaters, heard our podcast and said, no, we're not going bankrupt. And so he wanted to make sure. And so
we're fine.
So fair is fair. And full disclosure, I mean, since he says their financial situation is doing well, and we did question it because there was talk and Amazon was looking at him. And I mean, that was real news. That wasn't stuff we made up.
It wasn't. No.
But hey, he says that they're doing great. And so we have to, fair and balanced. I'm going to say that's what he says here in his email. So good for them. I'm hoping that's true. They successfully raised $500 million of new investment capital, so they're in a position of strength. So good on them if that's true, and hopefully they'll have some movies to actually show. But that's the next step, right? How are we going to make movies now that this stuff is going on? And there's an article in Vulture put out last week that I thought was fascinating. What will life on a movie set look like in 2020? And we're going to put a link in the show notes so that you can check this out, because I'm not going to sit here and quote the whole article or read the whole article, but we'll touch on a couple of things that it says. But go read it, because it's, as Matt pointed out, it's really long. And there's a lot of stuff in here, a lot of interesting information.
It's a good read.
But
if you're even remotely interested, it's worth the time.
Yeah. But I thought one of the fascinating things right off the bat is, what will movie sets look like? Yeah.
Blow up dolls.
Right. Well, and obviously Bold and the Beautiful has already got this idea. Obviously visual effects is the next step, right? So that's what movies can do. And with all the deep fake technology now, like obviously they could put a spouse in that kind of scene and then digitally replace their face with somebody that they want. There's lots of things that are, it's stuff they're already doing in movies, but now they may have to do things this way in order to be safe. But the most interesting thing that I thought was these biodomes that they talked about, basically that they would sequester the cast and crew for the 6 weeks that it takes to shoot. Like they would take over a hotel and just everybody would stay there.
I gotta say, I did not particularly care for this article's bashing of Pauly Shore's Biodome, because I love that movie. So I don't know, I don't have the name of the person who wrote it, but shame on you, sir, for disparaging such a
I
wonderful
thought they were
film.
Just loving jabs. No,
it was such a good movie. It's one of those movies that I watched over and over again, but whatever.
Pauly Shore.
We may have to do a whole rewind episode just about Pauly Shore movies, because
all five
can I
of
be
them.
back? Because let's be serious.
Some of those were fun. Like
Encino Man is
Encino
great.
Man is a
Encino Man
classic.
is great.
Son-in-Law
is phenomenal. I was not a huge fan of Biodome, but I'm not throwing jabs at it, right? It was what it was.
You're not writing about it on the internet saying that it's bad.
Yeah. But the idea that they're going to take these movie sets and self-isolate for and they'll have a 6-day work week and do like 6.5 weeks of 6-day work cycles, it says. So rather than over 2 months, they'll basically come in, they'll have a schedule, everybody will work their butts off for 6 days in this isolated environment. Then they'll have a little time off. Everybody will make sure nobody's sick, and then they'll go to the next location and do the same kind of thing. And it's just this sequestering way of making movies. One, I wonder what kind of effect that would have on the budgets, because they'll be, you're already paying for trailers and things like that. Maybe if
you have to pay for a biodome,
but if you rent out this hotel,
seriously.
You know what I mean? And just keep everybody in there, right? And then just do, who knows?
Yeah, what was interesting to me was what Tyler Perry has in, what was it, Atlanta or Georgia down there somewhere? Did you see that part of the article where he's got like this old army base that he's just like fashioned into his movie studio, where
he's just kind of got his own studio
and all these sound stages and everything. And I think that's great. What really bugged me, there was part of the article where, I forget who said it. Let me see if I wrote down who said it. No, I didn't write down who said it, but it was essentially like, yeah, we can have everybody go to these hotels, but, somebody's going to leave. He was just, what he said was, you'd have to put guards outside the hotel because you can't control people who want to go out and have a beer at night. I mean, that's what people do. And it's just like, really? Like, you can't, like, Hollywood is notoriously hard to break into at any level, from actors to writers to people like who want to, tape a boom mic to the wall. Like, it's hard to get into. If you can't follow the rules for 6 weeks in order to be part of this quote unquote elite business, like, there's somebody who will follow those rules. So if you have a guy who's supposed to be sequestered for the safety of the entire cast who leaves to go get a beer, guess what? You just walked off. You're done. Like, I don't understand why we're constantly making excuses for people who can't follow simple rules.
Right. No, I totally agree. Because, when it comes to just like the general population, obviously, as we have seen, there are people that are not going to follow the rules. But when it comes to when you're an employee of a studio or an actor, a part of a production, you've got to be held. There's a higher standard that's expected, especially for these big movie productions, right? And so, yeah, I feel like everybody involved and everybody employed in these movie productions that are going to be sequestered in this way are going to follow the rules because they know that's their livelihood, and this makes sense as to how it is. And they're not the typical general public that's going to be like, well, it's my right. I don't have to wear a mask, even though it's not necessarily in the best interest.
We see people going back and forth on whether or not they need to wear a mask going into the grocery store. And I'm not even going to get into that here. But like, I work at a children's hospital, right? That's my job. I get paid by them to work at a children's hospital. It is now the rule that I put on a mask when I'm inside my car, and I do not take it off until I am back inside my car when I leave for the day. Like, I'm required to wear a mask all day. If I don't do that, I would expect to be, at the very least, written up or punished in some way, like somehow, like given a talking to. Like, I imagine these people all have to sign contracts saying, this is the state of things. These are the new rules. Do you agree to adhere to these rules? Sign. If you don't, leave. You know what I mean? Because it's like one of those things where once you're on set, there's no possible way that you can expect these people to be 6 feet away from each other. There's jobs like a focus puller that require you to be right on top of the cameraman. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, like, everybody needs to take their test. Everybody needs to stay where they are told to stay. And if they want this to succeed, if not, it's just going to, I don't know. I just see it just shutting down again. Personally.
What a huge job it is to be the COVID-19 coordinator for these productions, right?
Oh yeah. Like you were talking about budgets. Like I think they mentioned in the article how many people they have to add to the staff just to sanitize and advise and make sure that everything is, CDC compliant or whatever. So
and never mind, and I mentioned craft services, no more buffet. Everybody has to get their own little individual thing. There's no the craft services is going to be completely different. But I'm curious to see how far this goes. Like, whenever a vaccine ever happens, which will probably be within a year or next year, does that change things? Will people start loosening up and go, hey, well, at least we have this tool in our toolbox that helps prevent COVID-19? Will that kind of loosen things up? But no, I think movie productions are going to be fast and furious. Hats off to Vin Diesel for that.
Vin Diesel again.
Still make more of those.
Right. Because, they are going to have to get a lot of work done super quick. It's going to, be intense scheduling, and they got to get the stuff done and get out. And maybe there will be more virtual stuff. Hey, they've got the volume, that whole virtual set on The Mandalorian, which makes things possibly a little bit easier, where now it's all just, everybody can just be at one place because they can recreate the different locations just in a big room with LED panels surrounding the set. So I don't know. We'll see. I also feel like doesn't it seem like there'd be a big enough backlog of movies that have been postponed past the summer that we'll have enough tent poles every few weeks until next year anyway?
Yeah, assuming they were finished.
Some of them. But one of the things that the article did point out is a lot of the big stars are saying, no, I'm not coming back yet. I'm going to wait a year.
Yeah, they don't want to be the guinea pigs.
And then if you're one of those, yeah, exactly. And if you're working on one of those films that stars one of these, either they recast or they postpone. They wait until that star is ready to come back and work. And now you, who are just, a PA or a cameraman who's like, I got to get to work. This is how I pay the bills. You're waiting on the big stars to say yes finally and come back to work. But you can't also can't blame. I'm not like throwing the stars under the bus because they're also making choices for their families and and health and whatever, and it is what it is. But it's a whole new world, a whole new different experience. Everything is going to be changing. It's a different world. Making movies, going to conventions virtually. We didn't even have time. We're running up on time here. So we're going to have time to talk about the convention aspect. Maybe that we'll go deeper into that in another episode. But as we've seen, virtual conventions, virtual conferences is a thing. More and more of those are coming out. And so if those end up being as massively popular as I assume they will be, because I can actually go to one now. I'm going to be there now. So maybe, at some point, maybe people will say, no, we liked it better when it was virtual. We don't have to go anywhere and be around other people. And it definitely smells better.
Well, I think it definitely gives an option for the people who don't have the ability to travel. Like it should always, I think we're going to see the virtual aspect. It kind of has to be a part of it. Like I can't afford to try to travel to San Diego every year and pay for the hotel or everything, but I might be able to cough up $100 to watch the panels from home.
Right. And I think you're going to see a lot more and more of that.
It's time for the 90-second Geek Rant.
That's right. This is the time on the show when we turn the microphone over to you, the listener, and hear what you have to say. A recommendation, a complaint, a praise, a rallying cry, whatever you want to talk about. This week is a recommendation from Katie, one of our listeners. Thank you for listening. Katie, here's what she had to say.
Something that I've been geeking out over recently is the book The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. In it, she explores alien races, human-AI relations, and cultures in post-Earth societies in an extremely refreshing way. I could go on and on about how unique and well-developed the alien races are, from the scaly reptilian andrisks and the complexity of their family structures to the slug-like Harmogians who, despite their physical weakness, use their highly advanced technology to wage war and decimate other species. The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet follows Rosemary Harper, a new human member of the multi-species crew aboard the Wayfarer, a junky old tunneling ship. Aboard the ship, Rosemary struggles to find her place among her peers as she tries desperately to keep them from finding the truth about her past. I don't want to spoil anything, but all I can say is that I love this book and the two sequels, A Closed and Common Orbit and Records of a Spaceborne Few. I cannot recommend it enough. Please check it out.
It's funny, Katie, after you called this in, I mentioned it to my wife. She's read the first one. She loved it as well, even recommended it to me, which I then promptly forgot about because I don't remember it at all. But that's two recommendations now from you, Katie, and from my wife. So I am going to check it out. Thanks for the call. And if you listeners have something that you want people to check out or avoid like the plague or jump on the bandwagon of or utterly destroy with Geek Rage, go to www.speakpipe.com/worldgonegeek and leave your message in 90 seconds or less, and you could be featured on a future episode of the podcast. Well, that's our show for the day. I want to thank Utah for being here.
Thank you.
Also, big thanks to my good friend, Matt Sugerik. What's the prompt you guys are working on for your next podcast?
Oh, you had to go and ask that. It is.
Wait. I didn't give it.
You didn't give this one. You didn't give this one. This one was a struggle, but I'm kind of excited about the story I have in mind.
This one's hilarious.
You should have never went to that party with Brenda.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it was especially odd because my mother-in-law's name is Brenda. So now,
so this story might have a personal touch. We'll find out.
That's awesome.
All right, and when does that episode drop? When are we going to hear that?
That episode is going to drop July 6th.
July 6th.
First Monday of every month.
Awesome. Thanks again for being here. We appreciate you stopping by. We're looking forward to having you back. Hopefully you'll come back.
Yeah, if I'm invited, I'll be back.
All right.
Thanks for having me.
Great.
Cool. Take care, everyone. Love one another wherever you can. Make the world better every day. We'll see you next time.
The Podcast is Real is a World Gone Geek production.